Welcome to episode 4 of Staying in Key. The intent of this video is to keep all of your music harmonic and quote-unquote musically professional. Today's course overview will be going over all of the octaves, how to change key, and then some of Ableton's features that help us stay in key. All right, let's go over all of the octaves and the keys within octaves. By the way, I am not a musician at all, but I do know enough about how to stay in key for at least dubstep and rhythm. If you were trying to make melodic dubstep, things like Illenium and Chainsmokers and all that, you really need to learn musical theory and scales and keys and melodies, because that's just the foundation of that music. But for traditional rhythm and dubstep, we pretty much just stay in one key, and if we do change, it's quite minor changes. It's very easy. It's pretty much just +1 or -1 a key. So I have the MIDI track here, and if I click and drag a highlighted box within that track lane and I do Shift-Command-M, it makes an empty MIDI window. And obviously you can see the piano roll opened up down here. So I'm going to expand that by clicking and dragging it up. And if I hover my cursor over this light gray or this dark gray area, it makes a magnifying glass. If I click and drag left and right, I can zoom in and out of the piano roll. So these are all of the octaves, at least in the digital sphere. They go as low as -2 and as high as 8. I think like on regular keyboards and stuff, like regular pianos, like grand pianos, there's only 7 octaves, but here we have 10, because I guess Ableton can process more. So anyways, on the top right, I'm gonna click on this icon here. It looks like a little like actual piano keyboard. Once that is enabled, it turns your actual computer keyboard into an instrument. So I'm pressing the letter S right now, and you can see this red key blinking. And if I hover over that key, it tells me that I'm playing D3 right now. Cool. Now, if I press the letter Z, I shift down an entire octave. Now I'm playing D2. If I press it again, I'm playing D1. If I press it again, I'm now playing D0. Right? And most bass music is written between C0 and G sharp, which we'll get into later. So to go back up octaves, you press X. So I pressed X 3 times. Where did we go? There it is. And if I go up again, up, up, okay, back down to D3. So remember, this turns on your actual computer keyboard to play notes, and then Z and X is to shift octaves, and then any letter between A and K or L. All of the keys between A and L are, I believe, just like regular notes. And then I think like W, E are these sharp notes, which are black, and T as well. So just experiment with your keyboard by pressing notes and just watching here to see what they actually play. You'll get used to this. But the most common one is you're going to press letter S for the key of D, and most dubstep is written in the key of D. And if you wish to draw in a note, you literally just double click where in that lane where you want the note, and then you can expand it like so. Now, if I had a note like this, I can click it. If I hold shift and my down arrow, that jumps the whole note an octave, and I can jump it down another octave, and I keep jumping it. And if I hold shift and the up arrow, it shifts that whole note up. So it's a little crash course on the piano roll. Now, these are all of the most popular keys people write dubstep in. So I said before, I believe that we go as low as C0, which is like really, really low bass notes. Anything below that, like B-1 and below, it's so low that like the sub just isn't powerful enough to just make it audibly pleasant. I'd be very surprised if you can write music below here and we can all hear it and it sounds sick. Like, please send it to me, because I would love to hear that. But we go as high as G sharp. I know when dubstep first started, it was really written in like F sharp, and then it slowly over time has been progressing down to lower notes. I know Sudden Death pretty much writes all his music in D sharp, I believe. Some really weird wonky rhythm is the key of E. This is just a very weird standalone key. There is no like E sharp. And then what else is there? Yeah, I think that was that. So just remember that these are the most popular keys. I would recommend just starting off in D0 as your first note to experiment with. It is a very fun note to play. It gives you good, strong sub with a nice tonality, and you can shift up to D sharp for more variations. And that's one more thing. So like if you write a song in the key of D, you can shift up to D sharp for more variation. If you start to shift more notes above that, you start to get very awkwardness vibes out of your song, I've learned. So if I write like an entire song in D0 and then like at some random point I shift all the way up to F sharp for like a long duration, we're clearly jumping like way out of the key that we were just familiarizing ourselves with. So just know that sometimes you don't want to jump extreme changes, but hey, that's just a guideline. Feel free to break the rules if you wish. All right, now we're going to go over how to change keys, which allows us to stay in key. So we're going to go back to our piano roll from the beginning. And this is D0, right? This sub is playing on D0. If I click on that note and I press the up button, I bumped it up a note. This is a note change, also known as a semitone. Every time you move a note one time, that is a singular semitone change, right? So D0, up one, that's one semitone. Another, two semitones, three semitones. So why is that important to know? Well, because when we go back to serum, let's do it down here. We can change octaves like we went over before, but we can also change semitones. So right now, this is D0, but when I bump it up one semitone, this is D sharp, right? And then if I go down one semitone, this is C sharp, right? So this allows us to change individual notes, and this allows us to change octaves. Now we're going to go over tuning to stay in key, and I have a very rough, horrible rhythm example for you. And I know this all sounds so bad, but it is a good demonstration of what's in key and what's not. So to start, I started off with my sub, which looks like this. You just click here, go to analog basic shapes, and it loads the sine wave. You drop it down 3 octaves, we press the letter S. This is a perfectly clean sub in the key of D. And if you don't believe me still, if we open up the EQ and I hover my cursor over here, on the bottom left it says D0. We went over that in the beginning on the frequency spectrum. So now that you have a sub sustained throughout your whole entire phrase, and you go ahead and lay down your drums, you want your kick to be in tune with your sub. And this is important because if your kick is like in the key of F, on every beat, you hear the note F, F, low note F, and then your sub comes in and it's like D, D, and that's like a major jump and change, and it will sound weird, and it won't work. In some instances, it really will work. These aren't really rules. Like I said, you can break all the rules that you want, but these are the ways to stay in key. So I clicked in my browser and I searched for a kick, and I just dropped this random kick in, and it's labeled D sharp. It will say that it's D, and then the number sign or that pound sign is the symbol for sharp in music. But this is a lie, because when I listen to this and I have the tuner effect down here, it's F, right? And also, by the way, if you're trying to find the tune of something or like the key of something with the tuner and you can't do it, because sometimes when you open up all the frequencies like this, sometimes the tuner won't read it. So if you shrink it down to just the bass region, it gives less information for the tuner to read, and it will just more accurately find the tone for it. So we know that this is in the key of F, but I want to make it D. And if you're not musically savvy like me, you just open up ChatGPT and you ask it, how many semitones do I need to change from the key of F to D flat? Boom. I already asked this question before, as you can see. And right here, it tells you. So you need to move down 4 semitones or up 8 semitones, and we want to go down. So I'm going to go ahead and shift it down 4 semitones. And let's go back to the tuner and look. Well, now it says C sharp, and that tells me that there's some pitch shifting going on in here. So I'm going to go ahead and just bump it up 1 more semitone. So we've moved 3 semitones total, down 3 semitones total. And now it's in the key of D. So boom, now our kick is tuned to our sub, and they will pair nicely together. And then the next thing that I did is I just grabbed a random serum preset. This is a samplifier preset, and I just made sure that we're all in the same octave. So I just dragged this down -3. So this entire thing that we're going to listen to is all in D flat on the lowest 3rd octave. Now, I did make one more minor change before I play. The first note that plays is not in the same octave. Where is it? I bumped it up all the way up to D4. So it went up 1 octave change. And this is still in key, even though this is way more high pitched than this. They're still the same key, it's just a different octave. So it is in key, but they're just jumping octaves. So I beat that dead horse. Let's go ahead and listen to this. horrible, horrible music and horrible example, but it's all in tune. It's all in key. Now, if I didn't tune my kick and I didn't change that preset, so if I go ahead and open up the preset as it was before, and I just kept it at this octave, right? And I didn't tune anything, it sounds like this. So really quick before and after, this is in key, and then what follows is out of key. As you can see, this clearly sounds very awkward as opposed to this, even though this is just not fine-tuned music at all. So yeah, that is how you would change keys and help you stay in key. Remember, this tuner effect will tell you what sound is playing and like what key it is in. And then when you go into your synthesizer, you can change the octaves with this knob and change the individual notes with a semitone change. And then for audio files, you just double click, open it up, and you just drag this pitch knob around to change the notes. By the way, if you click on this drop down box, on default, it saves it on beats, but when you do pitch changes, I do recommend going to complex. It just is a smoother algorithm for the audio file to play. When you do pitch changes on beats mode, it just kind of stutters and glitches it. So complex or complex pro is a smoother pitch transition for audio. So that is how you change keys. All right, and for the last part, this is short and sweet. I should have saved the tuner for this part, but again, yeah, the tuner effect to beat that dead horse just tells you what key is playing out of that track. Another way to stay in key, more specifically to stay in a scale, is you would open up your MIDI track on your piano roll, and then on the top left here, you're going to see this thing labeled scale. And if I click this icon, all of these purple notes are the notes fitted to that scale I'm on. So if I want to write in C minor, these purple notes are all the right ones to stay in that scale. By the way, this headphone option, if that's disabled, when I click and drag these notes around, you won't hear it play. But if I click the headphone option and I click and drag, you'll hear it. So if you're writing melodies, honestly, I'd probably turn that off because it gets hella annoying. But to change scale, you can go to here, change what key you want to write in. So let's do D. And then these are all of the scales. And I don't play with any of this, but if you're trying to get into melodic dubstep and stuff and write harmonic music, this is what you would do. So we could pick harmonic minor. And then as you can see, all of the purple notes now changed to harmonic minor scales. And all you have to do is just draw in notes on all of these purple ranges and then just keep playing back your music and listening and just write your melodies to stay in key and the right scale. Fantastic. We finished lesson 4 of Schoolhouse series. You made it this far, good for you. We got a ton more information to get to, and it does get a lot better from here, that I can guarantee you. But today we went over all of the octaves and the keys in the octaves. There's 10 in Ableton. Just know that once you go to like the -4 octave and below, it's so low that it's just you can't hear it. It just destroys the sound. And then the really, really high octaves are way too high pitched for our ears. And most dubstep is written between C0 and as high as G sharp within that range. I highly encourage you to stick at D flat, D0 to start. And then we also went over how to change key within Serum by clicking and dragging the octave parameter down, and then semitone changes are single note changes, whether you drag it up or down. And then for audio, you just double click the audio file and you turn that knob on the bottom left to change pitch. And we went over the tuner as well, which will tell you the key and the tune of that file that you're playing. And then obviously Ableton's features to highlight the scales if you want to write melodies and stay in tune for things like that. The next lesson, we're getting into a crash course on Serum, which is going to be like your main weapon to create awesome sounds. So yeah, I'll catch you over in that next lesson.